Hi guys, I'm Anna Lakin with Applegate and Dillman Elder Law, and with me today I have Ruth Hoffman, and she is a Medicare benefits specialist, and I'm pretty excited about what we have to talk about today. So thank you so much for joining me today, Ruth.
Oh, you're welcome. My pleasure.
Yeah, so why don't you share a little bit about yourself for those who have not yet met you?
Well, I've been in the industry focusing on individuals that come on to Medicare, whether it's turning 65 or because they're coming on due to a disability. And I've been doing this for 20 years. And so I focus on helping them make plan selections so that they are confident that they have what they need in place so that their doctor visits, prescriptions, healthcare needs are met.
That's great. So is there a certain geolocation that you serve, or do you kind of go everywhere?
Well, I primarily focus on the central Indiana area, but I do have clients in Florida and Wisconsin.
Oh, that's
With
incredible.
Zooming, we can reach anybody in the 50 states.
Oh, that's great. I guess I didn't realize, like, if you were a Medicare benefits specialist, that you weren't state bound. So that's pretty neat. I didn't know that.
Well, you have to be licensed in the states that you sell. So
Okay.
right now I'm licensed in Wisconsin, Florida, and Indiana.
Oh, that's good. That's great. That makes sense, especially for like those snowbirds who live in both
Yes.
places. So that's good. Well, that's great. Well, I'm sure you get lots of questions when it comes to Medicare benefits, but why don't you share maybe some of those common questions that you hear, every time you interact with somebody?
Well, typically they'll call me up and they'll say, okay, Ruth, I'm getting ready to turn 65 and I'm going to be retiring. What do I do? What's my next step?
Right.
So, whenever you're in that situation, your next step is to communicate with Social Security. You can go to ssa.gov or you can call their toll free number. And if you're needing to enroll in Medicare so that you have benefits once you separate from your employer, Social Security is the one that starts the ball rolling.
Oh,
And
okay.
so you have to make a request for enrollment in Part A and Part B.
Oh, okay. I guess I didn't realize that that wasn't automatic. Does everybody know that that's not something that they're just automatically that happens, or?
Well, if you are drawing Social Security, it's automatic. You
Okay.
automatically get your Medicare card with enrollment in A and B automatically. If you are not drawing Social Security, let's say you work past 65 and now you're 70 and you're going to be separating from your employer, well, Social Security doesn't know that. So you have to reach out to Social Security and let them know that now you're in a place where you're going to need Medicare.
Oh, that makes sense. So I'm sure a lot of people have questions about the costs associated with different benefit plans that they might enroll in. But more importantly, I think the terms like HMO plan and PPO plan get thrown around. And from a consumer perspective, I have no idea what those mean. And so, why don't you help me and others listening understand the difference between an HMO plan and a PPO plan?
That's a great question. And really, it applies whether it's an employer sponsored plan or if we're talking about a Medicare Advantage plan. So, an HMO is a health maintenance organization plan. And basically, what that means is either your employer or the insurance company that's offering that HMO has negotiated contracts with certain providers and certain hospitals. And all of your services have to be done within that network. So if you happen to go outside of that HMO network or that health maintenance organization group of folks, the plan won't pay and you're going to be paying the full cost out of your own pocket. The
Oh,
good news is that HMOs now are much better than they were many years ago. But it requires you to stay within the network. And if you fail to follow that instruction, you're going to be paying for your healthcare cost out of your own pocket.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. So, and then a PPO, preferred provider plan, that's what the PPO stands for, is not as restrictive as the HMO. You can utilize providers in and out of network. If you happen to go out of network, you may have a deductible you have to satisfy first, and then you may have a higher out-of-pocket cost for the services you're utilizing because you're using out-of-network providers. But the PPO gives you greater flexibility.
That makes sense. So, what would encourage someone to enroll in an HMO plan versus a PPO plan? Like, why would I choose that?
Well, in particular, in the 65 and older market, the Medicare Advantage plan, some folks may do it because of cost concerns. HMO plans have a lower premium
Okay.
than a PPO plan does. And more importantly, the HMO plan typically has a lower maximum out of pocket, which is your worst case financial scenario in a calendar year versus a PPO.
That makes
So if you're,
sense.
Mhm.
So, while you're not necessarily going to be able to go to anyone to receive services, at least the services to which you'll be receiving are potentially more affordable.
But it's not necessarily that it's more affordable
Mhm.
as much as it is that once you meet your maximum out of pocket,
Mhm.
okay, your worst case financial scenario for services under A, which is hospitalization, B, which is doctor visit, outpatient services, for the remainder of that calendar year, as long as you stay in network, you don't have to pay any additional out of pocket cost.
Oh, I understand. Okay. Yeah, well, that makes sense. That's pretty, it's an easier line to divide the two different types of plans than what I had envisioned.
Right. So the PPO also has a maximum out of pocket, but typically it's several $1,000s higher than an HMO plan.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, so as you know, at Applegate and Dillman Elder Law, we help people preserve their assets and become eligible and navigate the Medicaid process. And a lot of those individuals are also eligible for Medicare. And so when an individual is dual eligible, um, you sent me over this sheet that describes some potential plans that offer them additional benefits. And what can you describe kind of what that's potentially like for someone that could be dual eligible?
For a person that is dual eligible, um, as long as you're what's called QMB, which is qualified Medicare beneficiary, QMB plus, which just means qualified Medicare beneficiary plus, or full Medicaid. There are companies like United Healthcare, Humana, Anthem that offer what's called a dual advantage plan. So what that means is that these advantage plans take the place of Medicare. So when you go to the doctor, the hospital, and the pharmacy, you're showing your advantage card along with your Medicaid card.
I understand.
And when you do that, then the dual plan, will cover your cost at the doctor and the hospital at no cost, like you would have under original Medicare with Medicaid. But what the dual plan does, it brings you additional benefits above and beyond what Medicare typically covers. So we're talking about uh, enhanced vision and dental. You get a hearing aid benefit. You
Wow.
get over the counter um, uh, allowances that you can spend on a quarterly basis. You get transportation. So if you're at home and still living independently, but you're dual and you have a need for those services, then looking at a dual plan may be a good fit for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially like, so when you say dual eligible, could the person be on Medicaid waiver?
Yeah, that doesn't really matter one way or the other. I think when we run into challenges for someone that is dual eligible and is on an advantage plan, this dual plan, is if they go to step into a long term care facility, It's better to be just on Medicare and Medicaid with the standalone drug plan, because many of the facilities that are Medicaid waiver prefer it that way.
Oh, okay.
If you are not, at the place where you need long-term care, you're still at home, then these Advantage plans work nicely for you. And because you're dual, you're able to make enrollments outside of the annual enrollment period of October 15th through December 7th. So that if a situation comes up where you do have to step into a long-term care facility, then we can disenroll you from the dual plan and put you where you need to be, so that that placement goes a lot smoother.
Oh, that makes sense. So, while some people might think that they can't switch that plan, if they're changing from dual to a new plan, they can, correct?
Correct. Let's say, for example, they're on the dual plan.
Mm-hmm.
And for whatever reason, it could even be that, this isn't working well for them.
Right.
Okay. Typically, we can make plan changes to return them back to original Medicare with a prescription drug plan and Medicaid the first of the following month.
Oh, wow.
So each quarter of the year, first, second, and third quarter, you can make one plan change. If you're on a dual plan and it's the last quarter of the year, Medicare will not allow us to make a change.
That makes sense. So I'm sure people tend to have a lot of questions when it comes to insurance, and care plans and things like that. How often would you say someone should be meeting with a benefits specialist like yourself?
Well, typically, you meet with clients on an annual basis during the open enrollment period. But for folks that are dual, it could happen any time during the year except that last quarter of the year.
Okay.
So if they're, currently dual and they didn't know that these dual Advantage plans are available and they want to schedule an appointment, that can be done, and then the enrollment can be completed. And then after the enrollment, if this is not meeting their expectations, then you meet again. So when you're enrolling in these Advantage plans, many times clients are reaching out to me fairly regularly in regards to any questions that they have. That's what a broker brings to the table, that you're accessible, by Zoom or by phone call to answer their questions. And if the dual plan they're on is not working for them, there might be something else that's a better fit.
Right.
And so we have that knowledge to help guide them to the right place to begin with.
So maybe in the event of like a major circumstantial change, they should review their benefits or their plan.
Yeah, if, for example, let's say they're dual at the time that we enrolled them, they have to maintain that eligibility. If that eligibility changes for some reason and they lose their Medicaid, then they're going to be disenrolled from the plan. So that would be a time when they would reach out to the agent and then say, okay, what are my options now?
Right.
So there's a lot of scenarios that could happen that would require them to reach out.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So do you have any other questions that you feel as though people commonly have when they are initially making contact with you?
Yeah, I think many times when I hear from a beneficiary, it's because they're overwhelmed. They don't know exactly what it is they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
From reaching out to Social Security and getting that ball rolling, and then they get their Medicare card. Because for the general population, there's really two choices that you have. You can stay with original Medicare at what's called a Medicare Supplement plan to cover the gaps that Medicare would expect you to pay, and then add a prescription drug plan. That's one option you have. The other option is to look at a Medicare Advantage plan. And again, those are replacing Medicare for services under A, which is hospitalization, B, which is doctor visit. And then these Advantage plans also deliver drug benefit And they do deliver some additional benefits on the vision and dental side, not as rich as the dual plans, but they do
Right.
bring additional benefits.
Yeah. No, I could see how this whole process would be incredibly confusing. It's different than when you're in the workplace and they set two plans in front of you and ask you which one you want. Like this is
Exactly.
going fishing in a pond of plans.
And it really depends on, what hospitals you want to have affiliated with your plan, which prescriptions you're taking. Not all plans cover prescriptions the same way. It could also be that, what your budget permits. Because if your budget is, let's say, on a fixed income and you're trying to conserve your monthly income, then looking at an Advantage plan is a way to conserve premium dollars, as long as you understand that when you go for services, you'll have some out-of-pocket cost.
Right. I think that's the benefit of having an advisor like yourself, because you know those nuances that just a general consumer is not going to consider or think through. You've seen enough scenarios to know when, a plan might be the Band-Aid, but it's not the long-term solution.
Correct. And there's also questions about, what if I start with option number 1 and then I want to move to option number 2,
Yeah.
or I start with option number 2 and I want to move to option number 1. Well, someone with experience like myself can help you walk the path to do it correctly so that it's successful at the end.
That's important,
Yes.
because nobody wants that, like a complete gap in coverage. That's when bad things happen, is
Absolutely.
when there is the gap, inevitably.
Correct. Because there's times that, I met with a gentleman today, and he went into work and learned that he was going to be losing his employment at the end of the month. And so he was having to reach out to Social Security rather rapidly.
Right.
And sometimes those wheels don't turn very fast.
Right.
And so I was advising him, you may have to stay on COBRA so you don't have a gap. Last thing you want to do is not have coverage, and then you have a medical crisis.
Right.
And the other plan's not in place yet.
Right.
So you have to make good decisions.
Yeah. No, I think that is a huge benefit to having someone like yourself on someone's team of advisors, helping them to make their long-term decisions. So Ruth, if somebody wanted to reach you, what's the best way that they could contact you?
Well, my cell number is 317-775-9319, or they can reach me at medicare.ruth, RUTH, @gmail.com.
Okay, and I'll put that information in the description of this video. And if anybody shoots me across the question, I'll send that over your way. But I really appreciate your time today, and just even the tip of knowledge that you provided today. I know it only covered a small portion, but I think it could be very helpful to someone trying to navigate this big world of Medicare.
Yeah, I just want to encourage folks that are coming on to Medicare to reach out to someone like myself, because we have the knowledge, and we'll share it with them so that they don't feel so overwhelmed. You don't have to do this by yourself.
Right. That's right. That's exactly right. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Ruth.
You're welcome.
Have a good day.
You too.